Welcome everyone to our evening Light Up a Life service here at St Paul's. A big thank you to the church here for again welcoming us into the church to hold this event. It's such a lovely space, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that there's a lot of hard work's gone in to putting up the lanterns as well as the other decorations. So thank you to the staff of St Paul's for welcoming us. We're also really pleased to have with us this evening the Silver Flute Ensemble, who are going to be sharing their music with us as part of the service. And at the end, when we've finished, please stay if you're able for some refreshments and just the chance to look at your lantern and to spend some time talking together or to one of us. It's really good to see everybody here, particularly given the day that it's been. I don't know whether you've had to come in a boat, but it's a bit grim out there. So it's really lovely to see you. You know, if you've been before, that this is such a significant event at this time of year. As we sit with those memories and thoughts of the loved ones who we miss so much at Christmas, it's just that pause in the busyness of what's going on in the world to be together and to just support one another. So we're going to begin by lighting our remembrance candle, and John, one of our trustees, is going to share the first reading.
They do not leave. They are not gone. They look upon us still. They walk among the valleys now. They stride upon the hill. Their smile is in the summer breeze. Their memories whisper in the grass. Their calm in the trees. Their light is in the winter snow. Their tears are in the rain. Their merriment runs in the brook. Their laughter in the lane. Their gentleness is in the flower. They sigh in autumn leaves. They do not leave. They are not gone. 'Tis only we who grieve.
So I invite you to stand if you're able to sing our first hymn this evening. This is a hymn specially written for this kind of event by a friend of mine, Judy Davis. I invite you to stand as we sing this song that goes to the tune of Silent Night. Please be seated. So we take time now to hear the names of our loved ones, which will be read in between the verses of the poem. We're like candles in their memory and hold all we cherish about them in our hearts. If you wish, when you hear the name that you're remembering tonight read out, please go take your tea light and go to the nearest candle table to you and just place the candle there in memory. Every stages of grief has its season, and every facet of loss has its time.
A time for disbelief and a time for harsh reality. A time to know and a time to be consumed by unknowing. A time for clarity and a time for uncertainty. A time for public smile and a time for private tears.
All the Gillards, Claire Allen, Lynn and Keith Amesbury, Muriel Ashby, Patrick Joseph Aspel, Judith Badger, Chris Baggs, John Claydon Bale, Mona and Fred Baker, Leonard Ball, Ronald Ballard, Ronald Beeman, Simon Biddle, Jan, Ray and Mike Binding, Mark Bolam, Nigel Bowley, Fred Bowles, Rod and Jill Brazier, Thomas and Kathleen Brown, Sue Burge, Victor Burnell, Anthea Jane Buxton, Anne Carey, Lynn Francis Carr, Christopher Chard, Jill Chatterley, Linda Chitty, Richard Clark, Indy Inkpen.
Beryl Monia Coleman, George and Prue Colston, Patricia Corbett, Sid and Lisa Corp, William and Sheila Craze, Jacqueline Cross, Deborah Dainty, Heather Daly, Adrienne Dallymore, Jane Dart, Trevor Davies, Ruth Mary Davies, John Davies, Caroline Denier, Amanda Deuce, Stephen Drabble, Peter Duggan Rees, Ali Dye, John Erdley, Sue Edwards, Pete Edwards, Ron Edwards, George and Clive Elliott, Brian Emery, Michaela Ennis, Anita Evans, Mal Evans, Shirley Farrell, in brackets Canada, and Audrey Chapman.
A time to be thankful and a time of regret. A time of giving up and a time of going on. A time of living half a life and a time of wanting to live again. A time of then and a time of now.
Anne Fletcher, Susan Ford, Richard Fortin, Amanda Fox, Roger Freeman, Pamela French, Raymond Gallican, Ted and Elsie Gardner and John Power, Alan Garland, Lawrence Gerlach, Robert Gifford, Robert Graves, Roger Frank Greaves, Liz and Bill Green, John Griffin, Anthony Griffiths, Steve Griffiths, John Stanley Hall, Jenny Hancock, Rod Hancock, Carol Harker, Sandra Harris, Edward Harris, Terry Harris, Marcia Harvey, John Trevor Hawkins, Eileen Hebron, Susie Hepper.
Ewan Hicks, Wendy Hill, Brian George Hillman, Flossie and Bert Hodges, Michael, Barbara and Patricia Holloway, Yvonne Hornet, Henry Hoy, Dennis Hughes, Mike Hughes, Andy Hunt, Vicky Hunt, Joan and Eddie Inskip, Sandy Jarrett, Ian Jerram, Glyn John, Marjorie Philip and Selby Johns, John Johnston, Jean and Brian Jones, Peter Jones, Marion Kehoe, Nick Kenyon, Carol Ann King, Corbin King, Phil and Jan Kirk, Raymond Nee and Andrew Keys, Anna Knight, John Noland, David Richard Lane.
A time to feel hopeless and a time to be positive. A time of looking forward and a time of looking back. A time of faith and a time of doubt. A time for holding on and a time for letting go.
Philip Lawton, Sandra Ford, Brian Street, Marion Connie Lee, Richard Lee, Roger and Margaret Palmer, Edward Lester, David Lifton, Phil Lloyd Evans, Roy Luckhurst, Peter Margetts, Margaret Elizabeth Marshall, Liz Marshall, Rosina Dolores Mason, Les Matthews, Mervyn Moore, John McCarthy, David MacDonald, Katie McGowan, Andrew Jason Melhuish, Julie Mitchell, Dave Muldrum, Neil Moore, John and Kath Morgan, Leslie Morgan, Stephen Morge, Donald Murphy, Wendy Murphy, John Neal.
Terry, Ivor and Joyce Netherton, Joe Oatway, Jobo, Dermot Orr and David Goff, Keith O'Shaughnessy, Rick Parks, Ken Parkin, Barry Parsons, Philip Edward Pierce, Jackie Pierce, Peggy and Mel, Anne Pepworth, Margie Phillips, Duncan Pike, Valerie Pollard, Rhoda Eileen Potter, Colin Pountney, Bernard Samuel Pring, Harry Prowse, Lil Reed, Patrick Redmond, Ruth Redwood, Joan Reed, Judy Mary Elizabeth Rees and Rosalind Jane Parker, Helen Riley, Rob Richley, Sharon Robinson.
A time when steps are light and a time when limbs are tired. A time of hazy memories and a time of instant recall. A time for living with death and a time for living with life. A time of fruitlessness and a time of growth.
Lottie Roney, Bob and Bridie Salt, Robert Scanlon, Margaret Scrivener, Trevor Michael Selby, Bob Sennington, Elizabeth Seymour, Bob Shaddick, Mavis Shaddick, Ray Sharp, Ron and Hilary Shaw, Dorothy Shillibeer, Chad Sidaway, Dorothy Hilda Simpson, Linda Simpson, Malcolm Simpson, Dennis Slay, Joyce Smith, Peter Smith, Eileen Summerton, Victor Southall, Kim Spendlove, Jill Stapleton, Sandra Stevens, Victoria and David Sutton Thompson,
Sandra Taylor, Andy Taylor, Mark Taylor, Roy Taylor, Iris Taylor, Jackson Taylor, Rosemary Francis Thomas, Liam Tolan, John Torrington, Edward Turner, Valerie Vallance, Yvonne Van, Derek Vincent, George Ware, Florence May and John Henry Weekly, Sam Weway, Christine White, Mary White, Kate Wilcox, David Williams, Jeff Williams, Roy Willington, Martin Willis, Terry Wines, John Withy, Margaret Woolley, Vernon Ride, Valerie Wright, Ken Wyatt and Julie Taylor, Colin York and Adrian Jones.
A time of despair and a time of purpose, a time of emptiness and a time of hope, a time for rage and a time for peace, a time for tears and a time for laughter.
Sora and Brian Hollister, Carol Vowles, Paul Morrod, Sandra Jones, Rob Gage, Duncan Pike, Fran Wybrow, Mick Wybrow, Pat Yates, Paul Yates, Helen Gowland, Karen Appleton, Alan Christopher, Pearl Christopher, Noel Dyer.
A time of remembering hard times and a time for remembering joy. A time for talking and a time for quietness. A time for needing others and a time for being alone. A time for sadness and a time of giving thanks for love.
Thank you so much. I'm going to invite Judy Driscoll, one of our patrons, to come and share our next reading. Thank you, Judy.
Remember Me by Margaret Mead. To the living I am gone. To the sorrowful I will never return. To the angry I was cheated. But to the happy I am at peace, and to the faithful I have never left. I cannot speak, but I can listen. I cannot be seen, but I can be heard. So, as you stand upon the shore, gazing at the beautiful sea, remember me. As you look in awe at a mighty forest and its grand majesty, remember me. Remember me in your hearts, in your thoughts and memories of times we loved, the times we cried and the battles we fought, the times we laughed and the times we loved. For if you always think of me, I will never have gone.
Last week on the news, there were 3 noteworthy deaths announced. The politician, Alistair Darling, a 100-year-old Henry Kissinger, whose influence on international world affairs can't be underestimated, and Shane MacGowan of the Pogues, whose Christmas song Fairy Tale in New York hits the charts every year. I heard an interview following his death on the radio, and a fellow rock singer, I can't quite remember who it was, he challenged Shane MacGowan in the 1980s that as a punk band, he would never have a Christmas hit. How wrong was he? Well done, Shane. Another remarkable event in the music calendar this year was the release of a new Rolling Stones album, Hackney Diamonds. I don't know if anybody's bought it or heard it. After 18 years, the band still got it. And it's great, I'm a real fan. So it's up to standard, I'm glad to report. But I was really intrigued to hear Mick Jagger interviewed about the story behind the first single track that was released from the album, a song called Angry. Apparently, it was based on his memories of a particular relationship some years ago. He remembered feeling emotions and feelings around that time, but he clearly remembers the anger very well indeed. Anger's a hard emotion to cope with and to carry around, especially in bereavement. There are various theories of what happens when people are bereaved, and anger is identified as one of those stages that people go through. I'm not sure that I like that word, anger being a stage. But it's a rare thing for people not to feel angry with themselves. Should I have done more? Could I have done more? Where did I go wrong? Or maybe angry with healthcare teams. Why did they miss that? How could they let it happen? And maybe angry at the person themselves for dying. How could you leave me? Why did you have to die? In our experience of supporting and talking to bereaved families, this anger can be experienced very forcefully, alongside other emotions and feelings. But ultimately, the search is on, above all things, to find ourselves at peace. And this is a somewhat elusive quality sometimes, as we try to make sense of what's happened and the changes bereavement brings to our lives. It's not uncommon, and maybe you've experienced this yourselves, for people, families and patients to come through the doors of the hospice building and remark on how peaceful and calm and secure it seems. And it has a consistent effect of helping people to find peace of mind. And the same is true when people attend our day hospice, as some of your loved ones will have done, or to receive complementary therapy through the outpatient service, or to have the involvement of a community nurse at home. People tell us how much they feel reassured and soothed by the contact of hospice support. But to keep feeling peaceful and eased, especially after a loved one has died, is not easy. We can struggle to find peace because we're worried, distressed, under pressure, even fearful. And events in the world and around us, within our homes, the experiences in our lives, cause us sometimes to have sleepless nights and troubled days. And in bereavement, we replay the events of our loved ones' last weeks or days, wondering, did we get it right? Should or could we have done something more? And it's hard to settle with what we know and saw with our own eyes, and we wonder, were they at peace And will I ever find peace? And Christmas then brings its own set of worries and anxieties as we face that media pressure to get it right, whatever that means, when we're still lost in our anger, our sadness, and our grieving. So what can we do? For our loved ones, we can only hope that as life ended, they knew how much they were loved. And through that agony of parting, died in the knowledge which brings with it a sense of peace to their last moments. And for ourselves, maybe the question is, what do we need? Not what will make this better or go away, because it can't. But what might bring us now some ease if we allow it? This event, which some of you have attended many times now, some for the first time, it's held to be part of that peace bringing at this time of year, pausing to be with the emotions that are raw and distressing. And as we've lit our candles and our lanterns shine, they're symbols of the peace we seek and the peace that we need. And they're being lit the world over for love and for hope. And it may be that this simple act of lighting a candle tonight releases a little of the grip that grief has on us and restores a little peace. But my sense is we need a bit more. So maybe we reach out to the people that we trust to talk to. Maybe we accept the support of our hospice team. Or maybe we reconnect with something that we know restores to us a sense of calm, peace, well-being. What is it we turn to? It may be music. It may be being in nature. It may be faith. Or it may be an activity that you've left unforgotten for a while. I was interested that as the results of the census were released, it shows how many people responded to the faith and belief section in the census as being non-religious. And when you ask people what that means, and maybe that's yourself, people say, well, I'm not connected to a particular faith or a place of worship. But another recent survey records a substantial number of people, mostly young people, valuing prayer, meditation, an exploration of this idea of faith for the first time has been profoundly helpful in the search for, as St. Paul says, a peace that passes our understanding. And in my experience this year, it's been so noticeable, the increased number of patients and family members who've been asking me to pray with them. And that is usually around trying to find a peace of mind. Peace is a Christmas word. And although the place where for Christians it all began, certainly not a peaceful place at the moment, it doesn't mean that peace cannot be found for ourselves. The readings which we've included today, some very well-known ones, speak of settling, of restoring, and finding enough peace to live as well as we can, with the memory of our loved ones still around us. So as we meet and greet the people we love and care about over this Christmas period, may the peace that's embedded in the Christmas story take root in your heart and be a blessing. John Bailey, our Director of Patient Services, is going to read one of those passages now that is very well loved. Thank you, John.
Death is Nothing at All by Canon Henry Scott Holland. Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away into the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we still are. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way that you always used. Put no difference in your tone. Wear no false air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh, as we always laughed, at the little jokes we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effect, without the trace of a shadow on it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well.
I have come out to see the wisdom trees, to see the summer green take fire, red and gold in the autumn sun. Too soon these leaves, this autumn fire, will fall and turn to crackling ashes at my feet. Why must they fall so soon? Lying down on the leaf-littered earth, I sleep and dream. A special dream of tying leaves on wisdom trees. Leaf by leaf, I bind them on with threads of gold and green. A labour of love, tying leaves to stop the fall from falling. A labour of love? No, a fool at work. The trees are wise to know when to let go. They understand that in the economy of God's creation, part of life must fall away each year. Silently they accept, and wisely they let the leaves fall. The dream is over, and I heed its lesson. Part of learning in life is learning to let go, to learn the verdict of the seasons, and willingly to let the leaves fall, and think of another springtime.
I'm pleased to stand as we sing O Little Town of Bethlehem. Please be seated. Before our words of blessing, just a reminder to stay if you're able for some refreshments to thank the Silver Flute Ensemble and John for playing our music as well, and for all who've taken part, but most of all for you for being here. And we really hope that this has been a time of comfort and of strength. So our blessing. May the hope and light of the Christmas season fill your hearts and minds with strength and peace. As we have given thanks for our loved ones, we now commit ourselves to supporting each other with love and with kindness. Amen. Thank you so much for being here. It's lovely to see you all. Just take care on the journey home as well.